Hey everyone, what's going on? In this video, I'm going to talk about the collapse of Damar Hamlin and how it is interrelated into the truth rallies that were going on within the past year. And for a refresher, if you'd like, go to my videos here and go back to May and find this video right here. The one where I talk about the Buffalo rally. Even the next few, I also talk about the Buffalo rally and why it's important to Vice News showing up. And another thing, I'm also going to try to re-upload this video where I talked about the umbrella symbolism, but YouTube just so happened to take my video down on October 11th, and it's really interesting they would take this video down considering in the video I'm talking about how all of the truth rallies were connected to certain things, and how I think that even the gematria truth community, quote unquote, is being manipulated, and the things that we do are all connected to these mainstream media stories and so on. And it's just interesting they would take that video down, considering I'm questioning the thoughts and the beliefs of the truth community, something you think they would want people to do. But when I do it, I'm saying that I think we're all being controlled and manipulated. When I do it, they take down my video of it, which is really odd, you know? And ever since I put this video out, nothing monetarily in my life has gone right. Everything has just fell down like crazy. And I'll talk about this, but there's some interesting things here. This video, I didn't mean to make it this long, but it just so happened to be 2 hours and 26 minutes long. And if you go to my videos, back in February, I was following the number 219 and the date 219 like crazy, and how it was connected to a money theme. And I just find this really interesting because if you go from the date 219 to the day that I put out that video about the umbrella symbolism, it just so happens to be 226 days later. 226 days later, my video was 2 hours and 26 minutes long. And just everything, just lots of things. I don't want to go into too much detail, but my girlfriend spent a ton of money in November, right after my birthday, and I had to pretty much break myself just to catch up with that, and you know, barely scraping by there. And then on December 8th, my debit card wouldn't work anymore. Apparently, an old student loan from 2003. Actually, it was 9/11 of 2003 was the day that I signed the thing. They garnished my bank account. And now they're garnishing 25% of my paychecks. And my girlfriend just got fired at her job even. And it's like, what is going on, you know? But oddly enough, my girlfriend's name equals 226. And in relation to money, earlier this year was also the first time I ever hit a jackpot at the casino. And the casino was called Blackbird Bend Casino, that equals 226. And I hit that jackpot 226 days before my girlfriend's birthday. And then on my birthday this year, she wanted to go back, and we ended up going there. And we didn't win, but on the way home, she fell asleep, and I didn't realize she was talking in her sleep or whatever was going on. There's a lot of things going on, but she kept saying, Google it, ankles, Google it, ankles. And I was like, I'm driving, and I'm like, what in the world is she talking about? And I said, what are you talking about? Google it, ankles. And she's like, I'm sorry, I'm sleeping. And then I was like, okay, whatever. You must be talking in your sleep. But I was like, so I Googled ankles just because. I was like, there must be something to do with ankles. And I didn't really see anything. I found some like music video or whatever. And then when I got home, I was like, I wonder what Google it ankles is in gematria. And I typed out Google it ankles. And, well, it's not the Francis Bacon ones, but look at this. Google it ankles equals 226. Maybe it is, huh? Yeah. It's the regular ones, right? 226. Google it, ankles. So on my birthday this year, and my birthday this year was an interesting day because YouTube also gave me a strike on my channel for an old video about Kevin Spacey. And that, it's just interesting. So on the date 10/11, they take down my umbrella video. And on the date 11/10, my birthday, they give me a YouTube strike for an old video about Kevin Spacey. And what was interesting about that day was we also had Sweet Lady get into a car wreck. And Sweet Lady, Zach's girlfriend, equals 226. And the car wreck symbolism goes back to the umbrella stuff that I was talking about from 2016, which I will get to. But right after the Umbrella Man threatened Zach, a guy named the Umbrella Man on YouTube threatened Zach, a car crashed through Zach's house 2 days later on Christmas Eve, or the next day on Christmas Eve. And then my uncle ended up dying in a car wreck. And then this year, right after the 9/11 truth rallies, there was all that car wreck synchronicities. Remember that? Even my friend Tim had died in a motorcycle accident that same day. So there was like Derek's uncle was in a car crash, and I can't remember what it all was with Zach, like his dad or something, and a bunch of car wreck symbolism on September 22nd, right after all the 9/11 truth rally and so on. So then, what are the odds that his girlfriend would get into a car wreck on my birthday? And I'm talking all about this number 226, and her name equals 226. And also, in right after the 9/11 truth rally, Zach went to Yale to educate about skull and bones, right? And it was on September 12th. Well, that very same day, the guy who has the Umbrella channel also has a channel called October Rains, and he put out a video called Skull and Bones on that same day. So you know that it is connected. And what's interesting is that if you write out October Rains, think about how this happened in October too. His name equals 226. So now we have this Buffalo rally and Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin just so happened to collapse 226 days after the Buffalo rally. Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bills player. And I know, think about this in perspective. Cooper Kupp's grandpa, remember how Zach was connected to the Super Bowl last year? And Cooper Kupp was the MVP, and he's from Yakima. And Zach was also from Yakima. And then on November 2nd, Zach made the video saying that Cooper Kupp's grandpa was going to buy his old house. That just so happened to be 226 days before Cooper Kupp's birthday. And if you write out, let's just type in here, Damar Hamlin here. Damar Hamlin. His name equals 186. This is the big umbrella number that I talked about in that video. Just like how Zach Hubbard equals 186. Just like how Cooper Kupp equals 186. And oddly enough, the Buffalo rally was also 186 days after my birthday. But 186 is a big number with the umbrella symbolism because back in December of 2016, the Umbrella Man made the video telling Zach to watch out for Christmas Eve, and then a car crashed into his house on Christmas Eve. And that just so happened to be 186 days before YouTube took down Zach's first channel. And they took it down on 6/28, the day leaving 186 days in the air. Then Zach did an episode of the Gematria Effect on the 186th day of the year, and then he took a 2-week break. And there's a ton more to this umbrella symbolism, but the original Umbrella Man comes from the JFK assassination. His name is Louis Witt, who equals 186. And even in the regular Gematria ciphers, without capital letters, if you write out his full name, it equals 186. So it's this big number that is related to the umbrella symbolism. So it's interesting, they take down my umbrella video, and it's a video that I put out 226 days after that day where I was talking about it's important to money. And it's even more interesting that they took it down on the date 10/11. And on that same day, Enter the Stars had a video. Let's see if I have it in here. But that same day that YouTube took down my video, Enter the Stars, he put up a video. And on his video, he used Danny DeVito and Penguin with the umbrella as his thumbnail. And that was interesting because I also used this picture in my thumbnail of the video that I uploaded, right? So it's like, what are the odds that my video would be 2 hours and 26 minutes, 2 hours, 26 minutes, and then the same day that YouTube removes it, Enter the Stars has a video. And Enter the Stars was a guy I used to follow a really long time ago and learned a ton of stuff. I'm pretty sure I even really learned gematria from him to an extent, and, measuring dates and all kinds of stuff. But what's interesting is the fact that if you go from his birthday to my birthday, it's 226 days later. So this number 226 is connected to the umbrella symbolism. I hope you can understand that. Somehow it's related to this umbrella symbolism. And you know what else is even interesting too is I really started noticing the number 226. I thought that it was important in a post about Aaron Judge. When Aaron Judge broke Roger Maris's record, I talked about how I keep seeing the number 226. And I pointed out how Aaron Judge equals 226. And I had just put out a video that was 2 hours and 26 minutes long. The only two teams that were left in the Major League at the time that had a 226 connection were the Mariners and the Astros. Astros in all capital letters is 226, something I've talked about with the capital insurrection and capital letters being important. And if you go back to the Buffalo rally with Vice News showing up, Vice News wrote that article about Zach after the Houston Astros had won the World Series. So it's interesting the Astros would go on to win the World Series. They have that connection to 226, but I even talked about my girlfriend here in 226. But it's interesting with Aaron Judge because Aaron Judge, he then re-signed with the Yankees on Pearl Harbor Day. And if you read out Pearl Harbor just so happens to equal 226. And Pearl Harbor Day just so happens to be 226 days before Zach's birthday. So there's something interesting with how it relates. That was also Aaron Carter's birthday, and his name equal 226. And I have another video about Aaron Carter and this number 226. But, Pearl Harbor equals 226. World War equals 226. Russia invaded Ukraine 226 days before Vladimir Putin's birthday. Also, 9/11. Think about the 226 1993 World Trade Center bombing, right? And if you go from 9/11 to Pearl Harbor Day, it's 2 months and 26 days. So that's an important number. 226 is important to a lot of big events. So hopefully that connects you back to a little bit of why I am talking about this with Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin collapses 226 days after the Buffalo rally. He's the Buffalo Bills player. Oddly enough, if you look up Buffalo Bill in history was born on 226, right? And, oh man, what's the other guy who just died? The Hughes, or the guy who died that is connected? What was his name? Chuck Hughes? Look at Chuck Hughes in Gematria. Chuck Hughes, the only guy who's ever died on the field in an NFL game, 226. So, big number here. This number 226 connects a lot together here. And another reason that I know that it is connected to the truth rallies is because think about how, when he collapsed, you had like the Buffalo Bills, they're all rallying around him. All the fans are rallying for Damar Hamlin to get better. They're outside the hospitals rallying, right? And it's true even further because the very next day, after Damar Hamlin collapsed, we got this big sports story was the death of the rally driver, Ken Block, right? Rally driver, truth rally, rallying around Damar Hamlin. And what's even funnier is in my blog post the day of Damar Hamlin collapsing, I talked about how it was connected to Denny Hamlin. Let me just go back and look at it here. I talked about how it was connected to Denny Hamlin. And in 2019, my cousin Timmy's wife, who was like a neighbor of mine growing up, her mom had recently had a stroke. And there's a whole lot of stuff with the stroke stuff. But in 2019, her dad had a stroke. And I told my friend, I said, I bet you anything he dies on the day of the Daytona 500 that year because his wife, her last name is Hamlin. It's spelled different, but it's pronounced the same, Hamlin. And that was her maiden name. And we've always joked that her brother named Denny Hamlin was like, the NASCAR racer. There's always been this like weird inside joke about that guy being the NASCAR racer. And her dad, my friend's dad, was named Rod Block, and he loved NASCAR. And I was like, I bet you anything he dies on the day of the Daytona 500, and it's connected to Denny Hamlin. In 2019, Daytona 500, what happened? Denny Hamlin won the Daytona 500, and my friend's dad, Rod Block, died. So I blogged about this in my post with Damar Hamlin on January 3rd, and then the very next day, we get the death of the rally driver, Ken Block, dying, right? And it's connected to Denny Hamlin. And another reason I thought that was important was because back in November, we had the death of Coy Gibbs. And Coy Gibbs, right before my friend's dad, Rod Block, had died, we had the death of Coy Gibbs, I think it's his brother, J.D. Gibbs. He died, right? J.D. Gibbs had died, and that was connected to Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin, I think, races for that company or whatever. So it's like we got the death of Coy Gibbs. Now we're getting this whole narrative with Denny Hamlin coming back up. We got Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin collapses 226 days after the Buffalo rally. His name's 186, the big umbrella number. And you know what else is even really weird in regards to Hamlin is the fact that one of my good friends that I used to hang out with all the time, and I don't know what, I just don't, he lives in town, but he never leaves the house. Don't ever see him anymore. His name's Ryan Hamlin. And oddly enough, the day before the Damar Hamlin thing, he came into the gas station, and I'd seen him for the first time in a long time. And I was like, that's so crazy, you know, like I see this guy, and then Damar Hamlin the next day. That's another reason why I knew it was connected to, somehow connected to that NASCAR symbolism with my friend's dad, Rod Block. And then Ken Block dies the next day. But anyway, let me go back and explain some of these things again with these rallies. And they're really, really, really linked up to skull and bones and the umbrella symbolism. And I just want people to see this because it's, you know, it's insane here. It just goes to show that, you know, even the things that we are doing are connected to these mainstream media stories. And there's something to be learned from this, you know. It makes you question, hey, do we even have control over what we're doing? Are we being manipulated to do these rallies? Is there a turd in the punch bowl here that's influencing things? You know, there's a lot of things to think about that lots of people in this community don't think about. So recall, the whole Oklahoma City rally thing was kind of influenced by this story of this guy dying, Raymond Washburn, who was a guy who I think he saved people at the Oklahoma City bombing. And that story came out he died on January 16th, 3 months and 3 days before the OKC bombing, right? And that was the day that the OKC rally was decided. But that story kind of influenced, or, you know, Zach to want to do this rally, right, in Oklahoma City. And he starts pushing for all this stuff with Oklahoma City and the rally and Truth Rally and so on. And then like a week later or something, we get that meme in the story about the Los Angeles Rams coach, Sean McVay. His father was named Tim McVay, right? And he was like the muscular dude in the crowd or whatever. They compared him to Skip Bayless or whatever it was. But you knew they were doing a play on Oklahoma City there, right? So it was even more connected to the Oklahoma City rally. Then, you know, you had Cooper Kupp being from Washington, or from Yakima, where Zach is from, and then his name equals 186, like Zach Hubbard equals 186, and a bunch of connections to Zach with the Super Bowl. And then on February 7th, we got that story about the shooting at the Richland Fred Meyer grocery store shooting. And this was interesting because it was 322 days after the King Soopers grocery store shooting, right? And that was on 3/22. And then, so we get this other one in the area where Zach lives, or close to it, and it was 322 days later. And of course, 322 is that number that we associate with Skull and Bones, right? Skull and Bones, the number 322 is important to their secret society, right? So, and both of these stores are also owned by Kroger, so you knew they were connected. And to further connect it to Kroger, if you look up the founder of Kroger, he just so happened to be born on the same day, or he died on the same day Zach was born, July 21st. And this Fred Meyer shooting was 201 days after this guy's death day, or Zach's birthday. And that's interesting in relation to Skull and Bones, because if you write out Skull and Bones in the Francis Bacon ciphers, Skull and Bones equals 201. Also, if you write out King Supers, it equals 201. This was 201 days after Zach's birthday. Also, the death day of the founder of Kroger. And remember that Zach drove here and whatever, talked to the cops and so on and investigated the Fred Meyer shooting, right? So he's even connected to that. And he went there 201 days after his birthday, or it happened 201 days after his birthday. This number connected to Skull and Bones. These grocery stores connected because of the Skull and Bones numbers. And there's a whole bunch of other connections with this, such as how Fred Meyer, if you look it up, it was actually founded on December 10th, which was Joe Burrow's birthday. He was the quarterback of the Bengals who was in the Super Bowl. And this shooting at Fred Meyer also happened on Matt Stafford's birthday, who was the quarterback of the Rams, right? So there was this connection. And then when you looked at the Cooper Kupp connection to Zach and so on, it was interesting. And Joe Burrow's birthday, even 4 months and 19 days after Zach's birthday, the day Fred Meyer was founded, if you write out Cincinnati Bengals in the Jewish gematria, it equals 419. And then we were getting ready for the OKC rally that was on 419. And Oklahoma City is interesting because Timothy McVeigh, right? He's the big guy, Oklahoma City bombing and so on. And Timothy McVeigh just so happens to be from the Buffalo area of New York, right? And then the next rally was in the Buffalo, right? And also think about Tim Russert, the guy who supposedly exposed Skull and Bones and whatever, which is really obvious that they purposely let that clip out for, once again, to control the minds of the truth community. It's very obvious. They made 9/11 on purpose, like very obvious on purpose, just like how they did with this clip with Tim Russert and so on. But Tim Russert just so happens to equal 322, the guy who exposes Skull and Bones, and he dies on the day leaving 201 days in the year. And if you look up Tim Russert, he also was from the Buffalo area. Tim Russert, Buffalo, New York. Not to mention the Buffalo rally ended up falling on Alfonso Taft's death day, I believe it was. Spelling it wrong there, but Alfonso Taft. The Buffalo rally was on May 21st. That's the day Alfonso Taft died, and Alfonso Taft just so happened to be the co-founder of Skull and Bones. Not to mention, this is also the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills' birthday, Josh Allen. And recall, so we got the grocery store shooting at King Soopers on 3/22. Then 320 days later, we get the grocery store shooting at Fred Meyer. And then the next big grocery store shooting was Buffalo, which caused the Buffalo rally. But think about all the connections with Buffalo in relation to Skull and Bones. And further, to connect it to Buffalo, King Soopers, the shooting that happened was in Boulder, Colorado, which just so happened to be where the Colorado Buffalo play. Right? The college is in Boulder, Colorado, where the Buffalo play, right? The Colorado Buffaloes. So what are the odds that, we get all the stuff connected to the Buffalo stuff, then the Buffalo rally connected to the Skull and Bones, and then the next big rally was on 9/11, and if you go from the day of the Buffalo rally to 9/11, it just so happened to be a span of 3 months and 22 days. What are the odds of that? 3 months, 22 days? Or you could expand this and say that it was just 3 months and 22 days before September 12th, which is the day that Zach went to Yale to educate about Skull and Bones, of all the days. The day that the Umbrella Man releases a video called Skull and Bones on his October Range channel, which was also Andrew Luck's birthday, which I'll get into that maybe in a little bit, because Andrew Luck and the Colts were the team that Zach thought was going to win the Super Bowl in 2016, right around the same time that the Umbrella Man symbolism happened, right? The umbrella, Zach started All for Truth as well with the umbrella logo. Then the Umbrella Man made the video telling him to watch out for Christmas Eve. Then Andrew Luck and the Colts, I believe, got knocked out of the playoffs on Christmas Eve, the same day as House got crashed into. And this is Andrew Luck's 33rd birthday of all days. It's just interesting. And to make this even more interesting, if you go from 9/11 to the day Damar Hamlin collapsed, it just so happens to be, you guessed it, 3 months and 22 days. This Skull and Bones connection, right? 322. And don't forget, at the 9/11 rally, it rained and there was umbrellas everywhere. I've never seen that many umbrellas in the videos and the footage that was there. There was umbrellas all over the place. So it's like, what are the odds? There's umbrellas everywhere at the 9/11 rally. You got the Umbrella Man making a video called Skull and Bones the same day that Zach goes to Skull and Bones. And I went back and I looked at all my old Umbrella Symbolism stuff, and it was interesting because, let me find it here. He made this video about Zach and the car crash 322 days before my birthday. And when I was watching that video, I even blogged how the video stopped and buffered at 3 minutes and 22 seconds into the video. And it sat there for a while. And I was like, what are the odds? You know, it would stop at 322. And, 322 days before my birthday. Then he made another video that was all linked up to me. I've talked about it a million times. I'm not going to re-explain it. Then he made a little post where it said something like DB April 17. And I thought it was talking about April of 2017. But just so happened my other uncle, my one died in a car crash like 2 weeks after this video. Same day I got a letter in the mail, $300 in it, telling me to quit making videos pretty much and just believe in God, which seems like a synchronicity, but they express shipped the letter. It just seems so weird to me to this day. But he makes this other video in connection to all that, but that APR 17DB post he had, my next uncle to die just so happened to die on April 17th the following year. April 17th. That is some weird stuff, And what's also interesting is that uncle who died on April 17th, his birthday was 322. And what's even weirder is all the stuff with the garnishment. So student loans is garnishing they took my whole bank account. Now they're taking 25% of my paychecks. And it's interesting because the garnishment stops on the date 322 this year. And of course, 9/11 was really big. You think about 9/11, Pearl Harbor, the number 226. 9/11 was really big with Skull and Bones. It was the president, George Bush, who was a member of Skull and Bones. George Bush was also in the news. Somebody was trying to murder him or something, right, around the time of the Buffalo rally. But in these Francis Bacon ciphers, like if you write out Skull and Bones, right, Skull and Bones, it also equals 254. 9/11 was on the 254th day of the year. And I'm telling you, I've had all these connections forever. Like my name, Dan Barrett, equals 254. My full name equals 254. I was born exactly 254 days before Zach was born. And then of course, Zachary K. Hubbard, what he used on his channel forever. And the other ciphers here, the regular ones, his name equals 149, just like how Skull and Bones equals 149. Right? People have pointed this out forever, but how interesting, Skull and Bones also equals 202, and look at my name equals it in the regular ones. 202. All these connections. And another reason that I knew that it was connected to the umbrella symbolism was because if you went back to the Oklahoma City rally that really kind of all popped all of these rallies off, after the OKC rally, Zach and a bunch of people went to Dealey Plaza, the JFK assassination site. And remember, this is where the Umbrella Man actually comes from Louis Witt, right? Equals 186. So hopefully YouTube will let me upload that previous video they took down. I'm going to upload it and just change the name of the title. Maybe it's because it had 9/11 in it. Or, I don't know. I'm going to try. I'm not going to put 9/11 in the title, but I talk about all of this in that video. What is going on here? But, yeah, he went to the Umbrella Man site, right? Right after the OKC rally and so on. So it's absolutely, somehow I knew it was synced up to that. Then the Umbrella Man makes that video on the same day he's at Skull and Bones. There's all these connections to Skull and Bones with the Umbrella Man. Now we got Damar Hamlin collapsing 3 months and 22 days later after 9/11, where there was umbrellas everywhere. And once again, the umbrella represents, according to Fritz Springmeier, it represents mind control, right? And that's what I'm saying within this truth community. It's like we're being led down a certain path, like they created the real controllers or whatever's going on in this world created the conspiracy movement, gematria included, for a certain agenda. And a lot of people aren't realizing this. They need to pay attention to their surroundings. I'm not trying to be, I'm not saying I know everything, but I know that a lot of times with the way people decode, it's like this manipulated way of decoding it. They don't realize that, not every 68 means the CIA or whatever. So every time you see a story with 68 in it, it's got to mean the CIA or whatever. And that's not how it works. You have to understand the narrative. A narrative is way more important. And like for example, like connecting all this to Freemasonry, right? And the Master Mason ritual and so on and kneeling, all of that makes a lot of sense. And then you got the number 33 standing here and his name's Neil. It's obvious there is some type of ritual that is going on with this, but that doesn't mean that just some other random story of the news with the number 33 means the Freemasons coded the story. There has to be like a real reason to write that in there. And I just see so many people who decode in a stupid way, Every time someone dies age 67, it's a blood sacrifice. And you're like, what? Or it's also connected to these hundreds of other things, and it's also connected to my synchronicities. There's no proof that it's a blood sacrifice. It's just, I feel like people are like just going down the wrong path with the way they decode and they don't realize it. I'm trying to show people that there's a lot more to it than that. And as I showed in that other video, it seems that the way that we learned about the number 201 with the Jesuits was also manipulated. Some guy named Dr. Paul Cottrell comes out of nowhere, starts, telling us about event 201 while Zach's staying at room 201. He was in the hotel called the Trim that equals 186, the umbrella number, right? And then that Dr. Paul Cottrell guy, his first video where he talked about Zach, his thumbnail was an umbrella, right? It's like, it just seems that, and maybe that guy didn't even know that he was doing it. Maybe he was led to do that for some reason, but he came out of nowhere. Where is he now? He just disappeared. And then all of a sudden it's like every 201 means the Jesuits, and they just start popping in 201s all over. And so now every time someone sees a 201, it means the Jesuits. But to me, it means Skull and Bones, and I get that they're interrelated and so on, right? But it can mean something else to somebody else. It can mean anything. 201 can mean a lot of different things. You got to pay attention and figure out the narrative, and it's personal to you as well. So just a lot of people don't grasp this idea with the way gematria works. But it is also interesting in relation. So the Chuck Hughes guy, right? Chuck Hughes, the guy who is the only guy ever to die on the football field. Let me pull it up here. Chuck Hughes, he died on the date 10/24, right? And that just so happens to be the day that Zach made his first ever blog post. And that blog post was 3 months and 3 days after his birthday. And recall, when he started All for Truth with the umbrella logo, he was trying to raise $33,000 when he was 33 years old. A lot of people consider him the master teacher of gematria. The master teacher number is 33. The word teacher is 33. I mean, there was all kinds of 33s. Can't you remember it all? When he showed up to Oklahoma City, there was something to do with the band Primus was playing that night, and Primus, I think, is 33. And then 33 days after the OKC rally, we had the Buffalo rally. And the OKC rally was 3 months and 3 days before Zach's birthday. And he met Derek for the first time 3 months and 3 days after Derek's birthday. This number 33 was all over the place with all these things going on. And ironically, I'm talking about it in the 33rd minute now that I see it out here. What the hell? But, 33 was this humongous number. I even talked about how Sweet Lady's birthday is 3 months and 3 days before the Jesuit anniversary. I mean, the Buffalo rally was on Josh Allen's birthday, the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen in gematria equals 33. So sure, I mean, this is probably some type of Masonic ritual, but once again, it's super connected to the things that I'm talking about with Zach. And then Chuck Hughes dies on, 3 months and 3 days after Zach's birthday, the same day he makes his first ever blog post. His name equals 68 too, Zachary K. Hubbard, 68. That's the day leaving 68 days in the year. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to mean CIA, it doesn't have to mean that. It depends on how you're looking at it. It's, But there's no doubt there is some ritual, like that number 33 is the only one standing, and his name's Neil, while everybody else is kneeling. And, think about Master Mason and everything else. It's like, there's no doubt, but I'm saying that people are connecting things that aren't always there. And this is also, once again, why Zach going to Yale on Andrew Luck's 33rd birthday was important, right? And Andrew Luck was linked up to the original Umbrella Man Symbolism from 2016. So Andrew Luck's 33rd birthday is the day that he goes there. There's a whole bunch of other stuff too, because I've talked that when there was Hurricane Fiona and Hurricane Ian or whatever, I talked about how it's connected to Shameless, the TV show Shameless, because Fiona and Ian are characters on Shameless. Their last name is Gallagher. And I mentioned how I think there's something important to the comedian Gallagher, the guy who squashes watermelons. And then he ends up dying like a month later, or a month and a half later, or whatever it was. But it's interesting because I always compare my girlfriend, and I've done it on a video before even, to Fiona from Shameless. So I don't know, there's something connected to that too. How, she takes care of her family just like Fiona on Shameless. And there's a lot going on with that, but there's some interesting connection, especially with how she equals the 226 and has all them connections. And I'm only bringing that up just because of the fact that if you look up the girl who plays Fiona on Shameless, it's this girl, and her birthday is also September 12th, which is just interesting. There's something important to how that plays out. I don't know the full thing, but just what are the odds that Gallagher would die then too in November? And I know when I discovered the number 226 was really important to Russia and Ukraine and so on, and I knew that the number Conor McGregor becoming 22-6 was also important to that narrative. Previously, in the Russian boxer from the movie Rocky, his name equals 226. So I wondered if there's a connection to watermelons and UFC or Russia, and a Russian fighter. I can't think of what his name is, but he died at the age of 33 at the beginning of November, and his name was 226 in gematria. So I was like, there's some weird connection, and this date is important to it. Even if you look up the day after tomorrow, let me look at it. The day after tomorrow, if you go to the cast members, Amy Rossum, right? Right below it has Ian. So I was talking about Hurricane Fiona and Hurricane Ian, and I went to the day after tomorrow because, think about the hurricane that hit New York and all that. And then didn't Fiona hit Canada up by New York and all that? But anyway, right below her name on here says this guy, Ian Holm, and his birthday just happened to be September 12th as well. So there seems to be a connection to that. And honestly, I just figured it out. No, it has to be. My girlfriend's birthday, 11/23. If you go to 226, it's 3 months and 3 days. Unbelievable. I knew there was a connection. I didn't even think about it until making this video, but I stopped. I was like, what in the world? 3 months and 3 days after my girlfriend's birthday is 226 and her name's 226? So there's definitely something important to that day. It is the 57th day. We're coming up on Super Bowl 57 as well. So I don't know. I do find it interesting too, though, that if you go from the day that Damar Hamlin collapsed to the date 4/24, it's 3 months and 22 days. And 4/24 is this big number I talked about in the summertime with capital letters being important to Donald Trump, and also how it's linked up to Russia and Ukraine and war. And it's interesting because, oh, Wendy Allen, I think on my blog, pointed out that 424 days after Russia invaded Ukraine is the date 4/24/23. So there's something, I don't know. That's interesting to see that there's all these 3/22 connections, 3 months, 22 days after the Buffalo rally is 9/11. Then 3 months, 22 days later, we get the Buffalo Bills player collapsing. So I'm just curious about, 3 months and 22 days later. And it ends up being 4/24, this other big number that I was following throughout the summer. So, I'll go back in here and see what I wrote in some of these things. Oh, you know what else? It's interesting too. Damar Hamlin, he collapsed a span of 201 days before Zach's birthday. 201 days, right? Skull and Bones 201, right? It's crazy. His birthday's on the 202nd day of the year. Skull and Bones 201 and also 202. The Buffalo rally, it just seems so significant. And when I think back in the like 2016 and how the Colts didn't make the Super Bowl and so on, it makes me think that the Buffalo Bills aren't going to make the Super Bowl, right? Doesn't it? I mean, who knows? But it's interesting to think about, right? There's an interesting narrative going on with it. I think the Miami Dolphins just made the Super Bowl today too. Yeah, they did. That's so weird too because I was watching the very end of the game and the score was 9-6. I thought when they lost, unless at the very end somehow they gave them a touchdown. Well, even then, it was 6-6. How'd they get 5 points? I am so lost. I didn't watch the very end of the game apparently, but I swear the score was 9-6, wasn't it? What? I don't know. I'll investigate that later. But the 9-6 made a lot of sense because the Buffalo Bills had that 96-yard touchdown return at the beginning of the game or whatever earlier today. So, and the big narrative with the umbrella symbolism all stemmed back to my uncle who gave me that Miami Dolphins jersey in 2016, right? And I've been talking about how this is somehow related to what's going on. Then you got the Colts who played Houston today, I believe, right? And the Colts were, once again, the team that Zach thought was going to win, and they played Houston, and the Super Bowl was in Houston. And then Tom Brady ended up winning that Super Bowl that year, 2017. And it was over the Falcons, and he played the Falcons on his last game of the season today. So that narrative with my uncle is interesting. And you got Damar Hamlin. So you had Franco Harris with the Pittsburgh Steelers stuff, right? And the Immaculate Reception, synced up to the Virgin Mary, and the Immaculate Conception, and the Virgin Mary's birthday is the day that the NFL season began, and so on, right? And then you had Damar Hamlin, who played college in Pittsburgh, but Dan Marino also played college in Pittsburgh. So I think there is some relationship here with Dan Marino and how it connects in there. Because Dan Marino is, I think the last time the Dolphins won a playoff game, I thought they said that in the game, was that when Dan Marino played in like the year 2000 or something. So I have to figure out why the score changed from 11 to, I swear it was 9-6. But there is something with that narrative that is linked up. And to top it off, another interesting thing with the Pittsburgh Steelers connection, right? They're a team that reminds me of the bridge symbolism that's linked to the Eagles. Blogging about the Eagles a ton on my blog, but my friend, her dad just died on Christmas Day, and he is the biggest Pittsburgh Steelers fan I ever met. He used to coach my soccer team. Loved the Pittsburgh Steelers, but his name just so happens to equal, again, but you can't guess what it is, 226. And he died on Christmas Day this year. A big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. So there's something related to that. He had diagnosed with cancer like right around Thanksgiving and then died on Christmas Day. And his son is the one who got in that four-wheeling accident that was synced up to the number 201 and synced up to the Jesuit anniversary and a bunch of stuff with Prince Philip dying. So I've talked about that and blogged about it a million times. I'm not going to go into it, but there's something, I don't know. My friend lives in Georgia. We got Georgia playing TCU, so maybe there's something important to that, but it's also interesting too with the tiger symbolism. Remember last year the Super Bowl was in the Tiger year, and the Rams owner was born on International Tiger Day, and they were playing the Bengals, and the Bengals are the Tiger team. And then Damar Hamlin collapses against the Bengals, which is the Tiger team. But if you look up Chuck Hughes, the only guy to die in a football game, he just so happened to die in the game against Chicago, and that was in Tiger Stadium. So October 24th in Tiger Stadium. So he dies at Tiger Stadium. This collapse, Damar Hamlin collapse, happens during the year of the Tiger against the Tiger team. Also, Damar Hamlin collapsed after hitting number 85, T. Higgins. And that stands out to me because if you write out the word tiger in the Francis Bacon ciphers, tiger equals 85. Right? Tiger also equals 117, like Buffalo Bills. Also 3-2, like the day they say that Chuck Hughes' birthday is, on Wikipedia at least. 3-2, that's also the day that Franco Harris was born. That connection back to, oh, you know what else is funny? Tigers, hold on, the connection back to, 3-2 with Franco Harris, whatever, but Pittsburgh. But look at Tiger, 32-31. Look at the score of the Colts game today. They lost to Houston 32-31. Like, it's pretty interesting. 32-31. Both these things linked up to Tiger. But 85 with the Cincinnati Bengals, it makes me think of Chad Ochocinco, right? Ochocinco. And because he wore the number 85 and he played for most of his career with the Bengals. And he's going to be 45 this year, right? Like how Miami's 45 and was it Buffalo Bills equal 45, I think? So his birthday's on the 9th day of the year, 23. The 9th prime number is 23. 923 is really big with the Pope and so on, but Tigers 85, he wore 85. National Football League equals 85. Chuck Hughes died wearing the number 85 in Tiger Stadium. So I'm telling you, these Francis Bacon ciphers, stupid legit. Or the capital letter ciphers, however you want to label them, they are stupidly legit. I mean, for real, I just want to show another example of them. Like, look at Miami, 89 in the Francis Bacon ciphers. Dan Marino, 89, right? So, countless examples of how this works, but we'll see. I think there's something important to tomorrow. I wonder if we're gonna maybe hear a story about the I don't know, Damar Hamlin. Maybe he's gonna significantly improve, or maybe he'll die, or I don't know. But I think there's something important to Chad Johnson's birthday, especially too because his name equals 186, the umbrella number. So there just seems to be something significant to this guy. Ocho Cinco, Tiger 85, and so on. But there's a whole bunch of other things I wanted to talk about in this video, especially in relation to the money theme and everything else. But I hear my kids are just back, so I'm going to stop the video. But there's so many things with synchronicities. Talk about synchronicities and Sharon Osbourne. Then the next day, Sharon Osbourne's in the news. Talk about, had synchronicity with Jesus. My coworker thought that Jesus was on the face of Jesus was on a tray at work. And then I went to Facebook and it gave me a Facebook memory about a chicken strip that looked like Jay Leno. And then I documented about it. And then 18 days later, Jay Leno supposedly gets burnt. And it was all linked up to what I was talking about in my blog post. Just tons of things. If you just pay attention to your life, these things come up in the news. And the Sharon Osbourne thing, other people would say, oh, it was like, I can't remember how many days away it was after her birthday, but they'd make up something that fits the Jesuits or the Freemasons or whatever. And I'm saying, no, look at this. It's connected to something just completely different. And, why is she in the news after I'm talking about it? It's a synchronicity. A lot of these things aren't all just some cabal sitting around doing everything, unless they're reading my blog and making stories out of it, which is a possibility, but it'd be a lot of things to do. So, but yes, I will leave it at that. I wanted to get that skull and bones stuff across with Damar Hamlin, and I wanted to show how it is connected to the truth rallies. And if I ever get another chance to make another video, I will. We'll see what happens, but most likely it'll be a while. But have a good one. Peace.